Deftones are fucking sick. I love the new album. I didn't care too much for White Pony, but this one was sick as.
But the Deftones, no, they're great. They're awesome.
Yeah, they sound badass live.
It was late in 1994 that the band entered the recording studio to start work on their debut album, Adrenaline. A launch date had been planned for July '95, which allowed the band plenty of time to promote the album. Now all they needed was a record producer.
Well, one of my friends, one of the relationships that I had made down in LA was a lady named Lisa Marie with a company called Moyer Marie. They manage most of the top producers and engineers in the business. And Guy had mentioned Terry Date's name as a prospective producer for the band. You know, the guys in the band were just like, oh my God, that would be amazing. You know, Terry's coming off of some very big records. I talked to Lisa, and you know, Lisa proposed it to Terry, and Terry was very enthusiastic about doing it, and we made the deal, and the rest is history.
With Terry at the helm, work could now begin on the album. Many of the songs had already been practiced to perfection at the Cattle Club. However, they did set out to write a number of new songs in order to showcase Frank Delgado, the DJ formerly from Socialistic.
Adrenaline, outside of Sacramento, I don't think made a lot of noise at the beginning. You know, outside of California, there weren't a lot of people that probably knew about the Deftones. So it did take them a lot of touring to establish their fan base.
Well, Adrenaline was pretty well received by the press and the fans. I think it was fairly evident, even from the debut album, that there was more to this band than, you know, your typical hard rock or heavy metal act.
Adrenaline, you know, to me was a very good debut album. They had a few of those tracks out as a small EP, you know, locally, and the things that they, you know, sold on tour in cassette form before it actually was recorded. So a few of the songs, Engine Number 9, you know, made it to that album.
And radio certainly wasn't playing them, MTV wasn't playing them. It was a lot harder than a lot of the music that was happening at the time, a little bit more edgy perhaps, but around here people were digging it.
Everyone in public, basically, they were the biggest thing at that time and got tons of press and promotion from the public. But as far as with the media and whatnot, it wasn't really ready to be accepted. But I think in whole, the Adrenaline album is fantastic.
Real songs, real hooks. The band had teeth, you know. They were aggressive, but there was some meat and potatoes to them. It was something meaningful. You know, to what they were saying.
It was a really good album. It was really, it showed what the Deftones were about and are about. I think it punched a hole, you know, in that whole genre of rock meets rap without actually saying it, you know. Chino, a long time ago, before he was singing, he was rapping. He rapped for a long time.
Chino writes in a very sort of stream of consciousness kind of way, lyrically, but the things that he touches on lyrically are things that, you know, things that'll make you stop and think. I mean, he's not, you know, he doesn't write about your typical, you know, boy meets girl, you know, or you know, teen strife kind of things. I mean, he has a head on his shoulders, you know.
Just becoming signed and being eager and being legal and being able to go out and drink with an ID and not having to sit bears on the side and whatnot. It was becoming more real for the boys.
They had put into that album what they had been doing for a number of years, from the time we played at the Cattle Club with them, from their small tours down in Southern California. It was a good culmination of what they had learned, their experiences, and their talent. They held on to who they were. They didn't change anything about themselves. Other than the sound, the way the recording was, to me, it was a true Deftones sound, true Deftones record.
Still the way they wanted it portrayed, with a little bit of nips and tucks in the lyrics so that the label didn't actually know what they were saying. And I think it was tampering with how close can we get to the line without pissing off the label.
Over since yesterday. Gather your thoughts, this shall be a test.
After a hectic touring schedule, often being the opening act for their good friends Korn, and also going on tour with the all-girl grunge hell-raising nightmare that is L7, the Deftones returned to the recording studio to start work on their next album. A lot more time and effort was placed into the recording of Around the Fur, and like its predecessor, Terry Date found himself being talked into producing it.
Around the Fur as a sophomore release is better than traditional sophomore releases. There's, the infamous rock and roll sophomore slump that a lot of bands fall into. I don't think Around the Fur had that problem.
Chino's breakout moment in terms of being a vocalist, where he showed that he really could sing. On the main singles from the record, it's almost like a crooning kind of sound that he has with his vocals that explodes and, shrieking and all that. So there really was this yin-yang kind of energy.
Definitely their breakthrough record as far as the mainstream goes, I think. They picked up a lot more of the MTV radio crowd as fans and as, business people as well with Around the Fur. And a lot of that, I think, was due to the fact that Adrenaline was an undeniable hit.
I remember one of the songs was definitely getting played on the radio here more, My Own Summer, and you would hear that around the country a bit more. But again, there wasn't a lot of radio play and MTV support for them then, but for them musically was definitely branched out from the sound of Adrenaline. It still had all the in-your-face power punch kind of energy, but also had more moods to it. Definitely tried to stretch their sound a little bit, and it worked.
Chino, as a vocalist, I feel has come a long way over the past 13 years, and you can tell in each of the albums that it's kind of carefree and nonchalant, and now it's more thought of and more intense, and you can feel the emotion coming from the inside as opposed to just vocally screaming and hollering about what's going on in the song. There's actual feeling, and I think that that's what his secret is as a vocalist.
Well, Around the Fur, I think, is a record that shows, a lot of development. Adrenaline, as great a record as it is, was relatively straightforward, even though the band had started to, sort of spread their wings artistically. They hadn't really defined their sound as much, and I think with Around the Fur, you start to see them. There's a little something grander,
more personal. Chino wrote, from what I believe, were songs that were from home, things that he was going through, things that he felt. Mascara was my favorite song on that entire album. I loved it. I just think that it was they had a better understanding of the business. They were secure in being able to do the music that they liked doing, getting guidance from Terry Date, who produced their albums, kind of thing, opened the door for them to be who they are. And if you didn't like the Deftones, fuck it, they were going to be who they wanted to be.
Around the Fur, there was a lot of Stefan. I felt a lot of Stefan's influence coming through in that, and I think that as a band, that's important, that one person always isn't in the spotlight or taking over the whole track or the whole album for that matter, and I think that It's been a power struggle for the boys to decide who gets to do what on which album, but I think Stefan came out the most on Around the Fur.
By the end of 1997, Around the Fur had sold an astounding